In the past, we've talked about the horrible ways humans could get booted from existence. But in this episode, we will be covering the worst deaths suffered by Monsterverse Kaiju. Join us while we cover each of these deaths in detail, ranking them by their levels of brutality, gore, and violent nature, while studying the reasons why each of these kaiju perished the way they did. If this is your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smack that bell icon, and get ready to witness the 6 worst kaiju deaths in the Monsterverse. Before we begin, we'll take a minute to thank our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends, for continuously supporting this channel. And because this game has been around for 3 years, this mobile game has only gotten better. We Goji Center peeps can play using our QR code or the link in the description. Here are our top 3 champions, all from the Lizardmen faction because, you know, Kaiju. The Jizo allows you to attack your enemies 2 times in a row while protecting yourself and team from opposing attacks. Titan, Z-Ichi, can attack right through your opponent's shields, and finally... Wait, no, not this one. The Dracomorph. Apart from looking epic, this thing can attack 4 times and then poison your enemies. You can pick from hundreds of these champions, throw them into the arena, build their XP, and build your ultimate team. It's the best time to raid because this game is taking their anniversary seriously. Lots of free stuff, new champions, sets, and a personalized video recapping your journey and achievements. Not to mention their plethora of tournaments and countless prizes. Raid provided Goji Center fans with a free starter pack worth almost $40. You'll get Miserycore, Tiger Soul, and Romero, 10 Magic, Force, and Spirit Brews. But there's more. All new and existing players can get a bunch of free birthday gifts worth over $25. Just enter promo code 3YEARSRAID to get everything. Click on the link in the description or scan this QR code. Thanks to Raid for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to the episode. In order to help you understand how messed up these deaths were, we will be giving you examples of how these deaths would feel from a human perspective. This can get pretty disturbing, so if you're willing to have new types of nightmares, please keep watching. Number 6, the Kiss of Death. For you hardcore Godzilla fans, this method of killing is a very entertaining and in a weird way satisfying method of seeing a bad kaiju meet its end. But what did this female Muto feel whenever she died this way? And most importantly, why did Godzilla choose this method of killing? If we rewind a little bit, you'll recall that Godzilla actually already blasted Mrs. Muto in the face, but this really didn't do much besides knock her back and inflict some minor burns. This is because Mutos are equipped with an exoskeleton that helps mitigate some of the effects of the atomic blast. So now Godzilla chooses to fire his atomic breath right where there is no armor, her mouth. In order to do this, Godzilla manages to ambush the Muto from behind, biting her close to the neck, and with his strong forearms manages to hold the Muto's mouth open right below his range of fire. But how does this feel? Having these extreme temperatures travel down this Muto's throat only meant that the insides of her skull would get cooked instantly, meaning that this Muto died literally a second after this atomic breath traveled down her skull. Leaving existence with Godzilla looking down your throat would have been a truly humiliating way to go. But this method of killing was necessary in order to kill this kaiju. To put this into perspective, imagine an individual firing a flamethrower down someone's throat. Yes, this is a little messed up, but the point of us doing this is to help you understand how brutal these kaiju are to each other. Number 5, egged to death. No, we aren't talking about the act of throwing eggs at someone until they drown in yolk. This is much worse. If you read Godzilla Aftershock, you would have been introduced to the most dangerous member of the Muto species, the Muto Prime, a gigantic female Muto that evolved to be the ultimate Gojira species killing machine. But they wouldn't exactly do the killing, their babies would. Yeah, it only gets weirder from here. Muto Prime specimens are equipped with ovipositors. These are tentacles that literally inject another kaiju with eggs that would later hatch and feed off of the victim while it was still alive. Yeah, this is pretty messed up. In Godzilla Aftershock, it is mentioned that an ancient member of the Gojira species, known as Dagon, died in this exact way. This Muto Prime defeated this Gojira in a close combat confrontation. After bringing it down, this Muto pulled out the tentacles and inserted them into Dagon's flanks, depositing 2 Muto eggs. Over the course of some time, Dagon began to feel weak, tired, exhausted, and in intense pain, so much that it eventually succumbed to its wounds and died a slow, painful death. In human perspective, this is also really screwed up. Imagine a tentacle inserted deep in your tissues and then having 2 spores grow inside of you, feeding off of your blood until your malnourished body falls and dies. Number 4, Kiss of Death Part 2. Let's return to the other not-so-affectionate kiss in the Monsterverse, Ghidorah's death. Now, it's important to note that the previous Muto kill we discussed happened because Godzilla had to blast it down its throat in order to kill it. This one was a bit different. In order to completely kill Ghidorah, you had to destroy its center head. But this could have been done by stomping, ripping, and even burning it while it was on the floor. But no, Godzilla wanted to make an example of this creature, and took the time to put the opposite end of its neck in its mouth, slam it on the floor, and then blast it to ashes with its atomic ray. Was any of this necessary? No, but Godzilla, being the cocky and arrogant titan that he is, made sure he made Ghidorah pay for humiliating him previously. This was the definition of overkill, which is why it ranks higher than the female Muto. Still don't think this is brutal enough? Imagine that after someone is done killing their biggest rival, they take their still conscious head and stick the neck to the end of a flamethrower and then disintegrate it to ashes, as a way to humiliate its rival for the last time. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, Godzilla doesn't play around. But let's discuss another titan that is arguably just as violent as the G-Man.
If I were Godzilla, okay, and I had to fight against this OP 5th form because I failed to incinerate it in his previous form, my first priority is to not let that thing hit me, because as soon as that thing puts a hand on me, I'm done, okay, because it's now a more powerful Godzilla. So I'm gonna just keep tiring this thing out until it runs out of energy.
Number 3, Gutted. Traveling back in time to 1973, we run into this fight: Kong versus the Big Skullcrawler. Believe it or not, Kong had some beef with this Skullcrawler prior to this fight. This was the Skullcrawler that finished off his parents a while back. Now, let's get into the gory details. This kaiju wasn't brought down too easily. In fact, this kaiju had already endured boulders crushed on its skull, impacts from trees, propeller slashes, and a slice to the neck. But this Skullcrawler had something worse coming. Because this thing loves to eat and apparently also enjoyed messing with Kong, this Skullcrawler went for the human Kong was looking out for. This led to bring Kong's entire arm inside its mouth, which led to this. Alright, let's pause here to give you the whole picture. This is the tongue, esophagus, and stomach. Again, if we were to look at this from a human perspective, this is the equivalent of having all of this pulled out of you, because none of these digestive organs are directly attached to the heart, brain, or spinal cord. This just means that you will have a few seconds to see your guts get yanked from your mouth, feel a few seconds of extreme pain, and then die. That's after taking in deep cuts in these locations, assuming that your mouth is big enough to let all this pass through. But the point is simple. This death was very quick, but perhaps the most painful on this list. But we aren't done with the Skullcrawlers just yet. Number 2, Executed. Perhaps one of the most malevolent monsters in this franchise is Mechagodzilla, a giant Godzilla-sized titanium monster made self-aware thanks to the remnants of Ghidorah's heads. In Godzilla vs. Kong, we witnessed one of the many trial runs that Mechagodzilla was put through in order to test its effectiveness in battle. The subjects, Skullcrawlers. Except these were really big. In this scene, Walter Simmons ordered the release of Skullcrawler number 10, who immediately went for Madison Russell, but was interrupted by an already activated Mechagodzilla, who brought up this Skullcrawler like a ragdoll, stretching it wide in a humiliating position, ready to get executed. The brutality of this moment is seen in how this Skullcrawler is basically helpless, subjugated, and literally waiting to get killed. Although, to be fair, this Skullcrawler still had some fight in him, but given the situation that he was in, it couldn't do anything except wait to die. This gets even more messed up. Mechagodzilla now activates its proton scream and shoots it right through the Skullcrawler's mouth, and bringing the laser down, cutting the Skullcrawler perfectly in half. To put this into perspective, we can imagine a victim held in a similar way, with the wrists getting chewed on by the grinders found in Mechagodzilla's hands, and then shot through the mouth and sliced through the middle. When killing a kaiju, you really don't need to end it in this manner. The reason why the Skullcrawler died in this form was really as a form of pleasure for the executioner, which makes this a very dark and malevolent method of killing. You may think things can't get worse in the world of Titans, but they can. Honorable mentions. Before we hit number 1, we are quickly going to mention some kills that weren't placed on our official list. While we are still on Mechagodzilla, let's talk about how he got killed. As you probably already know, it took something special to kill this titan. An atomic axe wielded by none other than Kong. After Godzilla boosted this weapon, Kong proceeded to cut off the tail of Mechagodzilla, followed by a blow to its right arm, left arm, stomach, right leg, and one final blow to the back of the neck. Kong proceeded to rip this titan's head right off Mortal Kombat style. This method of killing didn't make it on our official list simply because of the type of titan Mechagodzilla was. Because it's mechanized, it's still unclear whether Mechagodzilla could actually feel pain like the other titans, especially since this kaiju's consciousness was linked via satellite. The next honorable mention is also a Kong kill. In the Hollow Earth, we were introduced to the Warbats. Kong was able to dispatch one of these immediately thanks to this rock conveniently placed right where this Warbat's skull was. We see that the other Warbat got pummeled to death and then had its head ripped right off. This would have made our official list had this Warbat been alive while it got its head ripped off, since it's theorized that decapitated creatures are still conscious for a few seconds after their heads are separated from their bodies. Now let's get to the final kill. Number 1, De-Spined. In the graphic novel Godzilla Dominion, we followed Godzilla's journey through the world as he faced several kaiju to establish order around the globe. But there was one creature that suffered what could have been the most brutal death in this entire franchise. Meet the Murder Fish, a giant fish-like subtitan that was found by Godzilla in his own lair. Godzilla was very displeased that his place was now inhabited by this fish and its minions, and on top of that, this thing had the nerve to attack Godzilla, biting him on the neck. Enraged, Godzilla quickly reached for this kaiju's arm, held him in place, and ripped his backbone right off this creature's body. So why is this method of killing at the top of our list? Given many of the ways we've seen Godzilla put an end to his enemies, we've never seen Godzilla go out of his way to rip the insides out of another kaiju. Godzilla is equipped with atomic breath to instantly kill this creature, but Godzilla chose not to. This titan had taken its home, ruined it, and then on top of that dared to attack him. So in response, Godzilla chose to kill this fish in the most brutal way possible. Just imagine getting your vertebrae ripped off while you're still alive. That is what this fish had to suffer through. How would you rank all of these monster kills? Can you think of another one that could have been featured in this list? Let us know in the comments. If you want to hear a more in-depth discussion about these kills and much more, tune into the Beast Hub, a podcast that caters to all kaiju, dinosaur, and monster fans. We'll see you there or in our next video.